Chairman. I want to follow up on a point that Senator Manchin made because I think it was a really important one. We're turning away and losing veterans because of lack of staff. It's an enormous problem. I understand it's a problem throughout the society. Every business that I talk to is short of staff. But I want to talk about the staffing problem in the VA, and that's where you might be able to help us. There are two issues that I've identified. One is pay, and the other is red tape. Let's talk about pay for a minute. It's interesting. I'll submit for the record, Mr. Chairman, a chart from the VA on VISN 1 on time to fill. And it's interesting, what I'd like you to do is to do some additional research. But of the time to fill, the lowest are generally urban areas and the highest are rural areas. Now, this is a small sample, but I'd like you to do this analysis on a broader sample and see if I'm correct. But I believe that you'll find that rural areas are having a harder time. The time to fill in Maine is 251. In White River Junction, it's 261. In Providence, it's 127. And so I think that's where we get to the pay part. And one of the differential in pay between different areas of the country, I think, is obsolete because people can work anywhere. You can now live in rural Maine and work remotely for the VA in Boston. Why would you go to work for the VA in Togus, Maine at a 15 or 20% pay cut if you can work remotely in Boston? Do you see what I mean? We're hurting the competitiveness of our rural VA facilities. So I think we should really have a rethinking of the pay differential, which is based on times you didn't have remote working, people weren't as mobile. This is national competition for professionals. Ms. Therrett, you've nodded a few times. What do you think?
So I think Mr. Perry and I may join forces on answering this question. I agree. I think the authorities that we have in the PACT Act have helped us to level some of those gaps or close some of those gaps that you've talked about between urban and rural because we're able to offer more incentives to those rural facilities.
But I know that Togus is not competitive with Boston or New Bedford or Providence.
We still have a long way to go, and then working with organizations like the Federal Salary Council and the Federal Prevailing Rate Advisory Committee, that's where I'm trying to spearhead some of these efforts at a broader level. I know Mr. Perry's team is working on one deliverable that we still owe the committee from the PACT Act, which is the Rural Recruitment and Retention Plan, where we can put more effort into reducing the red tape that you're seeing with the time to
Well, I haven't
fill.
gotten to that yet.
Yeah.
But look at the pay issue. I mean, I believe that the whole idea of differential pay in different regions based on cost of living is somewhat obsolete. Because when you're competing for a healthcare professional, they have nationwide choices. And to have a significant disadvantage in pay, I don't think it's any coincidence that White River and Togus are the ones that are lagging here because they both have really good management. I know the people at Togus, they're terrific. So it's not a management issue, it's that they've got to compete, and they have to compete with local hospitals. And that's a real problem. Let me talk about the red tape issue. Well, you know, here, again, let's go back to competition. To hire a professional at Togus or White River is around 250 days time to fill. At our Northern Light Healthcare facility, which is in the same region in northern and eastern Maine, it's 56 days. Maine Health, it's about 89 or 90 days, but significantly below. And yet that's who we're competing with. We have to really think hard about all the steps, and here's one of them. My understanding and my research tells me that there's something like 24 steps to hire somebody in the VA, and at Northern Light it's 7. We got to rethink that, it seems to me, and because again, we're in a competitive situation. The net result is less service to veterans. So how do we do that? I don't think Walmart has to go through some regional center when they want to hire somebody in Brunswick, Maine, or wherever they have a store. Why not empower the local managers if they have a need, give them a budget, they decide what they need, who they need, and do the hiring and hold them accountable. But don't have 24 steps in the process. Thoughts? She's passing it to you.
Yeah, yes, sir. I agree with you. There is a lot of steps in the hiring process, and I think we have a concerted effort to make sure we can streamline those where we can. Some of those steps that you mentioned are required, and so when you can,
Required by whom?
some of them are self-imposed. Some of them are from our Office of Personnel Management. We have requirements around credentialing and privileging, so we have to make sure.
But they work for you, or they work for Dennis. I mean, in other words, if they're required by us, let me know, because that's something we can
Yes,
fix.
absolutely.
If they're required within your system, that's what I want you to re-examine.
And those are the ones that we are streamlining, sir, to make sure that we reduce those redundant steps. But there are requirements that we have to apply because it is just the federal rules that we have to comply with. To your point about the time it takes, you're exactly right. I think it does happen not as quickly as we want. To make one point of clarification, the decision to hire is at the local level, and those budgets are managed at the facility level. So they have complete autonomy to decide when they want to hire and who they want to hire or for what types of positions.
They still have to go through those 24 steps.
Yes, sir. The steps do apply. So that's where we're looking to gain efficiency as many as possible. But
Well, I
yes.
hope you can come back to this committee and show us some changes that will deal with this problem, because ultimately, I'm sorry, I know I'm over time, Mr. Chairman, but ultimately, this is all about service to veterans.
Yes, sir.
And you can have the best hospital in the world, but if they can't get an appointment because there's a lack of staff, then we're not meeting our commitment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, just